Hello. Um, Working on my bass here. If you saw my previous video, I was talking about maybe keeping this as much factory as I could. Not so sure that the pots are going to make it. The the dirt inside seems to be keeping them from turning correctly. I've sprayed them out multiple times with contact cleaner, and they just seem to be stiffening up worse and worse. So anyway, in the meantime, I'm trying to get this thing cleaned a little bit, and thought I would offer up some thoughts on the new Fender Standard Series that's coming out of Indonesia. It's definitely got people talking. Something that stuck out was one of the multiple reviews that I saw pertaining to the Strats, but as a line as a whole, was asking who is this Standard Series line supposed to be for? Who's the intended customer? And as a long time Fender Mexican Black Label owner, I guess the intended customer is me. Somebody that is, I've never been terribly comfortable with the Squires because the specs are just a little bit off to me. I guess growing up with this Fender specs in the 90s, because I've owned, a handful of Fender basses. Um, my second guitar was actually an American Strat, 95 American Strat. They just felt a little more comfortable to me than the Squire products at any given time. And even since then, like every time I pick up a Squire, it just feels a little smaller, and which is fine for a lot of players. But I'm 6'4". I'm a pretty decent sized guy, and that little bit of extra size helps me. It makes me feel a little more comfortable playing the instrument. So the appeal of having the Fender Standard Series being an American size specs is good for me, because I know I would be more comfortable playing that than I would the like classic vibe line. It's not to say that the classic vibe is a bad line, but the one or two times that I've picked up one of them, it just felt off to me. It wasn't as comfortable. Um, so the comparisons that I've been seeing, there's been one comparison directly to the Black Label between the new Standard Series and the Black Label, which the Black Labels are basically all the same specs as the old Mexican Standard Series. And here is my cat. Hi, work. Hello. You come in. All right. Sorry, sweetheart. You're going to have to go because you're going to get into the tools. What was I saying? Oh, the Mexican specs. They're all pretty much the same. Which in the 90s, that was basically identical to this. At least the neck and body size was identical to what was coming out of the American products at the time, because they were all being generally cut in the same factory, shaped and sanded and finished in Mexico, but everything was basically coming off of the same CNC machines and same general patterns. Anyways, there's probably some differences. I know that the cavity route on these jazz basses are smaller on the Mexicans than they are on the Americans because of the smaller pots, which has been a problem because when I switched to CTS pots, wow, I'm blanking on my names now. When I switched to the CTS pots in my other jazz bass, they're very, very tight. I'm going to have to reset this ground later. But I guess my point is that there's a lot of people that seem to be like kind of butthurt about this Standard Series line. Like, it's, I don't know, honing in on the 95 American Strat. Like, it's, I don't know, honing in on the 95 American Strat. Like, it's, I don't know, honing in on the 95 American Strat. Like, it's, I don't know, honing in on the 95 American Strat. Like, it's, I don't know, honing in on the 95 American Strat. Like, it's, I don't know, honing in on the 95 American Strat. Like, it's, I don't know, honing in on the 95 American Strat. Like, it's, I don't know, honing in on the 95 American Strat. Like, it's, I don't know, honing in on the 95 American Strat. Like, it's, I don't know, honing in on the 95 American Strat. Like, it's, I don't know, honing in on the 95 American Strat. Like, it's, I don't know, honing in on the 95 American Strat. Like, it's, I don't know, honing in on the 95 American Strat. Like, it's, I don't know, honing in on the 95 American Strat. Like, it's, I don't know, honing in on the 95 American Strat. Like, it's, I don't know, honing in on the both the Squier Classic Vibe and um, the Player series, like, it's doing something wrong. But to me, it's actually going back to something that's already been established. Um, the folks that are playing now may have forgotten about the original Mexican Standard series, and definitely forgotten about the Black Label. Um, and um, there's been a very long tradition of Fender doing those kinds of guitars in that price point, because the Black Label series, the Squier series, was around $300 in the mid 90s, which equates to about the same price point as what the Standard series is doing right now. Maybe I don't know what the exact exchange or inflation rate is, but maybe right around that same amount. Definitely same specs. So the only real difference is the pick guards on these were single ply, all white. And there's a few more color options with the new Standard series as there was with the old Mexican Standard series. It had like 5 or 6 color options, with blue and this sunburst being a couple of them. So is it a good guitar? Is the new Standard series a great guitar? Maybe. I don't know. I haven't played any. It probably is going to feel pretty comfortable and familiar to me if I do. Having played multiple strats from that era. Do I think it's worth the price? I don't know. Maybe. I probably would go and buy an old Mexican before I would a new Indonesian. Because you can get them for approximately the same price. And they're basically the same specs from what I understand. So, for me, the old familiar is probably a little more valuable just because it is old and familiar, and people like old familiar things. Because, I'm in that age group now. But I think there is something to be said about Fender themselves actually offering a budget level guitar, which it is the price, it is the brand, but I feel different about being able to say I own a Fender than I would have if I was owning a Squier. And I know it's completely superficial and a little bit shallow, but it just, when you couple that with the longevity of what I've owned, versus some of the Squiers that I played from that time, because of course Squiers are two different beasts from now to then, because the quality has improved dramatically. But I don't know, maybe those Standards will be the Black Labels of 30 years from now. Maybe Fender will take all the vitriol and be like, okay, we made a mistake, and shut the line down, and those will be intensely collectible in another, or moderately collectible like the Black Labels are now. Maybe they'll have their little cult following like the Black Labels do. I don't know. So, who's the new Standard Series line for? Maybe it's for the future. Maybe it's for the people that want to get into guitar in 20 years and find a good bargain somewhere and like, oh, this is a real Fender for, not expensive amount. And there's my cat again. Hi, Orc. Anyway, I was just thinking about that and thought I'd share. Thanks.